Well, let me begin by echoing Minister Pistorius's comments about our musicians here. That was fantastic. That's the finest group of saxophones that I've heard in a very, very long time. Of course, the drummer believes that you would be lost without her, so, thanks to our drummers. Well, let's give them a round of applause. Boris, thanks for those very kind words. I really appreciate it. And Christine, it's an honor to see you again. Thanks for being here. It is great to be back in Germany. And it's one of the great honors of my life to receive the Order of Merit of the Federal Republic of Germany. Our friendship is anchored in our reverence for democracy and our work together for our shared security. The United States and Germany have forged a deep and long-standing alliance. We've gone from the depths of war to the heights of solidarity. We've stood together through the long twilight struggle against the Soviet Empire, and we've worked together to resist Putin's flagrant aggression against Ukraine and beyond. Being in Germany is somewhat of a homecoming to me. As you may know, I had a brief 41-year career in the U.S. Army. And back when I was a young second lieutenant, my very first assignment in the U.S. Army was to Germany. I was deployed to Aschaffenburg, and I was assigned to Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 7th Infantry. And I loved every minute of it. And I still remember how beautiful the countryside was. I still remember how people went out of their way to make me feel comfortable. And I still remember how grateful people were for our presence. I should say also that before that deployment, I'd heard a lot about German beer. And it lived up to the hype, and still does. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm deeply moved by this award, but it doesn't really belong to me. This honor belongs to everyone who worked together to make America and Europe more secure on my team and on Germany's team. It belongs to the American and German troops and veterans who stood to watch. It's about the leadership of President Biden, Vice President Harris, and the rest of their outstanding national security team. And it's about the democratic principles that we still uphold. Now, Germany has long understood that NATO is the strongest defensive alliance in the history of the world. You have long understood the importance of the grand project of the European Union. And ladies and gentlemen, there's no question that this is a time of testing. But you know that our shared security rests on our commitment to collective defense, robust deterrence, and Article 5. And you know that we must work together to keep NATO united and strong. Germany has also taken extraordinary steps since Putin's all-out invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. We must not let dictators redraw borders by force. Letting Putin's imperial aggression succeed would be a strategic catastrophe for America, for Germany, for Europe, and for the world. As I've said, if Ukraine falls under Putin's boot, Europe would fall under Putin's shadow. And our children and grandchildren would inherit a violent and chaotic world in which tyrants and thugs think that they can invade their peaceful neighbors and get away with it. But Germany understood the importance of deterrence and of standing up to aggression. And Germany has dug down deep to contribute to Ukraine's security assistance. That's a testament to German leadership, and I don't take that lightly. You have made historic progress on defense spending. You've loosened the debt brake. You've approved a 500 million euro fund to boost infrastructure and military capabilities. You've decided to station a permanent armored brigade in our ally, Lithuania. and principled German leaders across the political spectrum have been willing to bear the burden of our shared security. Germany has shown that it understands the stakes. Last year, Germany reached the mutually agreed NATO target of spending 2% of GDP on defense. And your government has declared that German defense spending will hit 2.4% of GDP in 2025 and 3.5% by 2029. Now that would be almost 4 times more than Germany's defense spending in 2018. And ladies and gentlemen, that is leadership. We see it, we know it, and we understand the sacrifice that it brings. But as I have long said, in the face of aggression, the price of principle is often dwarfed by the cost of capitulation. You know, it was my honor to work with 3 deeply committed German ministers of defense, starting with AKK, and then Christine Lambert, and finally Boris Pistorius. I had great ties with all of them, and I salute them for all that we've achieved together. But since he's still on the job, I should probably say a word about my good friend Boris. Now, becoming the German defense minister has sometimes been a great way to bring a promising political career to a swift end. And we weren't quite sure what to expect when Boris appeared on the scene, but he was instantly approachable and impressive. And Boris and I met for the first time, as you heard him say, right here in Berlin on January 19th, 2023, right after he was sworn in. And I do mean right after he was sworn in. I was his first foreign visitor on the job. And the U.S. and Germany, as Boris has explained, were having a spirited discussion about delivering Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. And Boris and I had a pretty intense bilateral engagement in his first hours on the job. But he dove right in. He was smart, tough, and shrewd, and determined to get things done and to get the right things done. And as you've heard him say, we met again the next day at Ramstein Air Base, where we often convene the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. And he wouldn't give up, and neither would I. So Germans and Americans worked together at Ramstein, and we cleared the path for a deal to deliver many more tanks to Ukraine. And that's where I'd like to end. But you know, coming to Germany used to make me think about Aschaffenburg. But now coming to Germany makes me think about Ramstein. We started the Ukraine Defense Contact Group in Ramstein. We called it the UDCG. But our brave Ukrainian partners always called it Ramstein. Ramstein was the motor that drove the military coalition to help Ukraine defend itself. And Ramstein was where we came together to uphold our shared values. I honestly lost count of the number of times that I visited Ramstein as Secretary of Defense. But every time I came back to Ramstein, I thought about the history that connects our 2 democracies. You know, about this time last year, President Biden was here in Berlin, and you honored him with the Grand Cross Special Class of the Order of Merit of the Federal Republic of Germany. And in his beautiful remarks that day, President Frank-Walter Steinmeier said something quite haunting. Germany's president told America's president that, and I quote, "What binds us together are the lessons from our past." And that's still true. But what binds us are also the hopes of our future and our responsibility for the present. What binds us is Ramstein. What binds us is our commitment to share to a secure America, a free Europe, and an open world. And what binds us is our responsibility to defend democracy, and what binds us is our duty to defend human freedom. Boris, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this extraordinary honor. And may God continue to bless all those who rally behind the flag of freedom. Thank you very much. And Chief, congratulations. I forgot to congratulate the newest Chief of the Fifth.
Congratulations.